Hi everyone, I kind of just wanted to start this video off by doing like a brief apology almost. This isn't really like the kind of videos I'm used to making, so I'm not really used to being on like in front of the camera and talking to people. So I kind of just wanted to apologize, like if it seems a little bit awkward, that's why. So I think rip the band-aid off, we're just gonna get started. So tonight I couldn't really sleep, so I decided I'd go for a bit of a walk and just kind of let my thoughts stew and kind of ruminate and develop, and just kind of work some things out and figure some things out, really think. And I kind of wanted to talk about vulnerability or intimacy. To be honest with you, I don't really think there's much of a difference between the two. But yeah, I think both concepts are kind of things that I've struggled with personally, in the past and present. And I definitely plan on making these both things that I work on for the future. And I guess I kind of hope that if any of you watching this or hearing this also struggle with anything, vulnerability or intimacy, this kind of video will kind of help you and maybe let you know that you're not alone out there and that we're all kind of struggling together. For the longest time, I kind of felt that if I was vulnerable with people, and I mean like if I showed people the parts of myself that like things like my insecurities or the parts of myself that maybe I don't like that much, people would leave and maybe they just wouldn't like me as much. And at some point I realized that that kind of comes from, like prior trauma, and, we've all got trauma, of course. It's part of life. There are things that happen that affect us all differently. And it just so happens to me that I developed kind of a fear of opening up and kind of just showing people all of me, especially the people that I care about and the people that the people that I love, I thought that if I wasn't constantly portraying someone who was like completely like put together, or like this perfect being, which is so deeply problematic because none of us are really perfect, and I'll have more to say on that as I kind of keep yapping away on this. But I kind of felt that if I was like that, people would leave and they wouldn't like me because they realized that I maybe wasn't that good. And at the end of the day, that's just a really unrealistic expectation to put on someone, and it's really unhealthy to just imagine that people aren't going to like you for who you are, because how can you know if someone's going to like you or not if you don't show them? That's the hard truth of it. If you don't give someone an opportunity to see who you are as a person, how can you be upset if they don't love you for that? Like if you are presenting something that you are not, this quote unquote perfect being, you aren't being who you are. Because let's face it, as great as you might think you are, you're not perfect. You have your own problems and your own flaws. And I think that is just human. That's just who you are. That's okay. If I were to ask you to think of like the person who you think is perfect, or so maybe someone that you love or admire quite a lot, you'd probably realize that they're not perfect, but you still love them and you still admire them, even regardless of their flaws. Does that not mean that people can love and admire you despite your flaws? It kind of sounds like common sense, but that's kind of like been my cope tonight. That's kind of been my realization, I suppose. I'm not perfect and that's okay, basically, is what I've gotten to. And I'm still lovable because of that. You know, you could still love me even though I'm not perfect. And that took a lot to realize, I will be honest. Um, I think we have this, because of social media especially, we have this unnatural want, I suppose, or need to show everyone parts of our lives, but we tend to only really show the best parts. You know, when we're feeling the best is when we'll post things, or you know, we want to show people what we're like when we go somewhere nice or whatever. But that's not every day. You know, we're not doing the best every day, and we're not somewhere nice every day. You know, there are days where you wake up and you don't really want to talk to anyone, you don't want to do anything, you just want to lay in bed, my bed, which I do often feel quite bad and just want to stay in bed. But I do force myself to get out because I know personally if I stay in bed I'll feel worse. You know, that's human. That's human. We're all like that. You know, I don't know. I haven't met a single person who isn't like that. You know, and I've met a lot of people. You know, I've had 21 years of life, and I haven't met a single person who isn't like that. You know, I think the fact that these people that we in our heads we're like, you're perfect, I love you. We kind of forget that they have flaws, or I don't think we forget. I think we love them despite it. You know, you have problems, I still love you. In fact, I love you more because you have problems. You know, and I think a big part of that is because it makes them more relatable. And I think as humans, we seek connection. So if someone seems relatable, we want to connect to them. So by seeing someone's flaws, we connect because we're related. Like we relate to them. We say, oh, you're like me, you know? I think realizing that was like my biggest help through this, you know? And I think that being vulnerable doesn't mean weakness, you know? I think it's a whole thing in my head where I was like, being vulnerable meant that I wasn't great, which meant that I wasn't good. But I think, crazy thought here, insane. Being vulnerable and showing people the part of you that you might be afraid to show, or you might even not want to acknowledge, takes a lot of strength. And I think you need to show people that, especially if it's people you love. You need to show them that, hey, I'm not perfect. Will you love me anyway? And if they don't, then you need to let them go. Because you don't need that. You know? If you can't be who you are, then you're not in a happy place and you're not where you need to be. I'm sorry that this wasn't like a particularly this wasn't a particularly long yap sesh. I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts and maybe reach some of you that might be going through the same kind of struggle, or like, you know, feeling the same kind of way. And I hope that this video, you know, kind of lets you know that it's okay, you know, and that you're not alone, ever, because we're all going through the same struggles and we're all feeling the same kind of, you know, pressures, I suppose. But yeah, this was my first video. I'm quite proud. I've always wanted to do this, so I think it's taken me long enough to, I suppose, build the courage to kind of get out here and talk to you guys and just say what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. But yeah, this was my first video. I'm gonna go ahead and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna link my TikTok and my Instagram in the description down below. I kind of just post, just kind of like positive shit posting is what I call it. Don't know if I can say that on here. But yeah, I'm just kind of trying to push some positivity out there. So if you kind of want to see some more positivity just on your TikTok or Instagram, feel free to just check it out. You know, you don't have to like or follow or anything. But just if you want to see those are going to be down there for you guys to have a look at. But anywho, my name is Adrian. It's nighttime here, so I'm going to say goodnight. I love you all, and know that you are loved, even when you don't love yourself. Bye bye.